Hey everyone, I'm Louie,
And I'm Valerie, and this is Musical Tangents.
where we just talk different things about music.
Welcome.
That brings me to the next kind of question. So, to make something universal, we need to expose that music to people. We need to make it accessible. So, like,
Okay.
Taylor Swift's music is available everywhere. Like, I can go to Korea,
True.
I
Yeah.
can still listen to Taylor Swift's music. But that makes sense because Taylor Swift, again, is the creator and she's the performer of the music. She is able to control it more freely compared to, like, for
somewhat.
example,
She does have her issue with her
well,
owning music.
yes, that's true. But without getting into that weeds of part, I think she has more control of it than, say, I don't know, some forgotten classical music composer, because they didn't have the same medium. And if especially, I feel like if there were not the performers of their work promoting themselves, I think it was a little more difficult, don't you think?
I don't know. I feel like that gets into a gray line because there's independent artists today who are trying to get their music out there, but it's just now we have this music industry, and
Yeah.
you have to get into the music industry.
Well,
and,
it's kind of
it's a vicious battle in there.
it kind of went back to what it was. Like, only a small circle of people
Can get
who were
really
accepted.
popular.
Like, like, can you imagine? This is for the classical listeners. Chopin, Schumann, Mendelssohn, all of these composers knew each other because they were in that small salon just playing their own music, and they would write about this composer. Like Schumann, for example, said Chopin's first ballade is the closest thing that you can hear from a genius. That was one way of promoting themselves, and that, I think, to me, is very similar to what we have as music industry, like you talked about. Everyone just only talks about getting into that. Like, so why is it so hard then? Other than the fact that there's this big corporation monopolizing the
I
market.
guess it's just capitalism. I don't know. It all goes back to capitalism.
Well, I think it's more than that, though, because I don't know. I mean, the audience definitely can support more variety of artists, but do you think they're not necessarily being helpful for the artists either?
The fans? No, the fans
No,
are
not
like,
the fans.
oh, okay.
Not the fans. The general public. So, like, for example, let me give you an example.
Okay.
An independent artist based in Lexington, Kentucky, is trying to get a fan base.
Okay.
So they go out, they start performing in different, I don't know, venues, gigs, whatever. But they still don't really build the fan base, or they're not able to. Is that the performers or the artist's responsibility? Like, is the artist doing something wrong? Or
that's a
is
good
the general
question.
public not giving them enough platform? So here's my point, is that I feel like people can only focus on so many artists. They can only follow so many artists. Like, that's one of the reasons why it's harder if you are trying to make your name as an independent artist, because people who have their labels, people who have their management companies, they support the artist as a group, and they expose their music to different media that people basically just hear them kind of unconsciously, and they're like, oh, I actually kind of like this music, and they start to look up. That's the power of exposure in a way. But independent artists don't have that platform. They don't have the power to do that, so they need to build essentially their own group of people
Yeah. And
So
then
if they fail to do that, is that also the fault of does that fault go back to the corporations or the music industry monopolizing certain markets, or does that go back to the general public not giving the artists a chance, or is that the artists? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. I mean, it could be a number of things. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it wasn't the right timing. Maybe the music. Maybe there just wasn't interest in the music, or they didn't find the right people for whatever they were trying to produce.
yeah,
I don't know. That gets into a weird gray area. I mean, there's just too many factors to like pinpoint an answer.
because I mean, I don't know. I It's like it's kind of weird for me to talk about this because I grew up doing theater.
Mm-hmm.
So the music that I was exposed to was pretty similar
Mm-hmm.
because I worked with certain group of people
Mm-hmm.
and they were interested in similar types of music that I was listening to. So I had a group of people who essentially had similar interests,
Mm-hmm.
right? You probably have similar experience. I mean, you probably have friends who kind of like listening to the Beatles, and
Okay, for reference, I do not only listen to the Beatles.
I know, but that's
Okay.
what we've talked about
Yeah.
so far. So, and you like certain other bands that you
Mm-hmm.
listen to, that kind of gives you that sense of connection with other people.
I mean, there's definitely like communities built around artists
Yeah.
or bands as well.
So that's why I'm a little torn about the music industry because I think they are doing a good job promoting certain artists, but some artists just don't make into that industry. And I feel bad, right?
Yeah.
Because as
But there's also like now that we have streaming platforms and it's easier for people to access the music, there's so many indie artists are just becoming a lot more popular. Like independently made music is reaching the charts now. Like if you like I recently switched from Apple Music to Spotify, and a lot of independent artists were being like music that's being suggested to me. Whether like most of it I'm already familiar with or some new stuff as well. But it's just kind of like versus maybe even 5 years ago, that was just like maybe not the case. Definitely like 10 years ago, that was like
oh
independent artists did not have the traction in like pop culture that they do today.
yeah, so exposure, that's probably
And
important.
accessibility.
Yeah, like if you
Like,
But okay, so
Well, like-
okay, so then the next question is, what makes music accessible, or what's an accessible music? Because we talked about the Beatles songs being accessible. It's very listenable. Okay,
yeah.
so what defines accessibility in music?
I guess just, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I just thought of that question because, like, do artists have to be really approachable? I don't know.
No, I
Is
don't. I
there
mean, you don't
certain-
have to know the artist to even enjoy the music. Like, I could listen to a song that I've never heard before. You don't have to tell me who the
Okay.
artist is. And
Okay,
stuff like
but
that.
like what factors in
I
to
guess like
accessibility?
the invention of like the internet has made. I mean, and that goes for more than just music and the arts, but everything is more accessible now if you have access to the internet.
Right. But also not just purely based on exposure. There are certain music there are certain songs or pieces that attract people. You know? Like for example, I remember oh gosh, what was it? That was one song. By the way, I don't have TikTok. I don't have any
You're not
plans.
missing much.
But
It's just wasting hours a day.
well, I mean, I think there are some values to keeping
Yeah.
up with TikTok, but I just don't. I don't have time. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest. I have other things to catch up on. So like I have already missed out a lot. So, but my point to that was like my wife has TikTok and she would play something and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, that song sounds interesting. What is that song? You know what I mean? So like
TikTok has definitely changed the music game as well. I mean, someone like I just the whole world of TikTok and music is it boggles my mind. It's insane because it can be from something like an independent artist blows up overnight and her song has or their song has like millions of streams now, or something like a lot of like artists from like the 90s who haven't produced music in 20 years but their song blew up again on TikTok and now they're producing music now.
Yeah, I think, but that's what I'm talking about is that exposure might be one, but not every music that is exposed to the media that are accessible around us, it doesn't get the same attention. Like let's say I wrote a song, right? I produced it, and then I release it to TikTok. That doesn't guarantee that my music is going to be picked up.
It doesn't.
So what then determines that is kind of like, I guess my question is that like
Fate.
what really
I don't know.
like destiny.
The algorithm. Just pray to the algorithm.
Yeah, but like I don't know. There are some artists that I feel like they don't do that and they still get picked up. You know, like I don't know. That's just something that I'll never be able to answer personally to myself. I don't know what makes music universal. And at the same time, I don't know if music becomes universal. Does that mean that's actually because people had similar experiences listening to that music, or is that just because everyone heard of it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there are other symphonies like the Ninth Symphony, that other composer that we haven't heard of.
Or lost music.
Exactly.
Or hidden away music. Like
So like those are something that's interesting to me. It's like there are other pieces that might be as interesting or more interesting that we just gotten around. We haven't gotten around to hear it. So I don't know. That's something that I guess I've been pondering upon a lot. And that kind of goes into the interesting part.
oh, what is the interesting part?
So one way of getting exposure
Okay.
is scandals.
Oh,
Controversies.
I feel like no. Okay, what are you gonna say?
Okay. Ed Sheeran's music
Okay.
was recently kind of viral because he got into that lawsuit of plagiarizing Marvin Gaye. Now, here's what I'm going to say about that.
I wouldn't. Plagiarizing is an iffy word there. I mean, he won the lawsuit.
What do you mean? Hold on. Let's go back.
The whole preface of the lawsuit, like, you can't own a chord progression.
Exactly. So that's where I was heading with
Okay.
that. So like a piece of music or a song. By the way, the only reason why I distinguish that for the listeners, it's because I grew up with classical music and I grew up with other pop songs. Songs are essentially if a vocalist sings words or sings, period. But, there are other instrumental music that's just considered pieces. Anyway, that's just nitty-gritty terminology thing.
Yeah.
But if there are songs that went viral,
Okay.
but it turns out that it's not the original or the most original one, does that really matter? So my question now is, does creativity mean originality?
No, I don't think so. Sometimes creativity is reimagining something that already exists in a new way.
But that's my point. To what extent? So we talked about Ed Sheeran lawsuit. I haven't really followed
I
the
haven't
entirety of it,
either.
but I just know that he won
Yeah.
because it was just basically chord progression, like you said.
I mean, melody was kind of similar, but like that happens in.
Similar in what way?
I don't know. It just with that I didn't follow along with it because I thought it was kind of ridiculous. Because it's like you can't own a chord progression, especially one that's like that simple.
Okay, then my next question is, what did you think of Memories by Maroon 5 with Canon in D?
I mean, it is what it is. Like, you can't own Canon and D, It's just so
Not
many
anymore.
people, so many people use it. Like,
It's been past 70
everywhere.
years
Yeah.
since the artist's death.
Like,
Pachelbel has been
yeah.
dead for longer than 70 years, so
And,
copyright is in free public domain.
oh my god. Anyways, I mean, who's to say that like someone before Pachelbel
Did not write
didn't
that.
use that,
It might not have been
or
recorded.
it just wasn't written down, or it wasn't
Exactly. It
recorded,
might not
or
have
he
been
just
recorded.
didn't like exactly like you can't own something like that. And
yeah, but like there has to be certain line there though.
yeah, I mean, you shouldn't like just straight up steal someone's music, but
I don't know. That's another interesting part to me because I do believe that there is, to a certain level, that there's a way that you can plagiarize other people's music.
there is.
But is that okay? Like, what is the situation where it would be okay? Because this to me,
this is gonna be a weird reference. Have you ever
Okay.
seen the movie Coco? It's like a Disney Pixar movie.
I unfortunately haven't still gotten the chance to see it.
So,
But I've heard a lot
there's
of
so
good
many
things.
children's TV show references today.
That's
But
what it is.
anyways, basically, I'm not gonna like go through the whole plot of the movie, but part of the movie is there's these two people who are writing music together, and one of them's kind of like the front man, and the other one's like actually writing the music. And the front man, like, essentially like kind of like murders the guy who's writing the music and then steals all the music and becomes super famous. So that is an area of plagiarizing that is not okay. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, stealing someone's music
Only
and
when murder is involved.
no, but like stealing. Okay, it's a movie, it's a cartoon, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, you can't like take someone's music and call it truly your own. Like, Ed Sheeran was not saying like, I'm the first person to ever come up with this chord progression. That's not what he's saying. He's like, I'm using it in this pop song because I like the way it sounded and it fit whatever theme or story I was trying to say in this song. But he's not claiming that like he is the sole inventor and he has the right to the intellectual property of this chord progression.
But he's the one who's getting paid.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. So that's where I think a lot of people are torn about this conversation.
Yeah.
Is that, like, even for me, I'm torn about it because as someone who attempts to compose, I have composed a few pieces, but it's not well known, by the way. You can check them out, but it's on my YouTube channel and everything. But I think it's hard. It's a hard conversation for musicians who likes to create their own stuff because they feel entitled to get certain compensations from their own work. It's kind of like, so the only reason why I think plagiarism became such a, you can't plagiarize, I think academia actually has a lot to do with it. Meaning, you go to college or you go to high school, you turn out to have copied something as a quote, and you didn't cite it properly, and you get in huge trouble. I mean, I remember I was a teaching assistant in graduate school, and one student kind of got in trouble because the similarity report was like 80%. And I don't really know the ends of that story, and I am never going to speak about that ever again. But my point is, you get in a lot of trouble. And that, I think, kind of ingrained in people's mind as plagiarizing is just morally wrong. You cannot do it.
I mean, it is morally wrong, but
But that's my point, is that, like, in music, oftentimes we either use the same progression or we even use similar melodic lines, and yet some people essentially pay. I remember one of the lawsuits definitely did pay the original artist, even if the music didn't sound the same. I can't remember who it was. I do not ask me who it was.
okay.
But I remember one lawsuit. They didn't necessarily win the original, quote unquote, original artist, because they were the ones who were suing the artist who wrote the music. But the artist just still gave them the money that they made, or a portion of the money that they made from the song. I think it becomes more important for musicians because they get compensated.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. Is like, is it right for people to be, I don't know, because to a certain extent, some people are not actively, consciously copying it. Some people probably just wrote it because they thought it sounded good, but they couldn't remember if they have heard of it anywhere. Because I remember one of the prominent stories of Paul McCartney writing Yesterday or Let It Be. He played it for the bandmates, and they were like, I don't think that music exists. Also, it must be original. So they recorded it, right? Now, there wasn't any lawsuit about the Beatles, or let's just use Yesterday and Let It Be, of those two songs being similar to another song. I don't think. There shouldn't have been.
No.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
But let's say one artist who's been dead for a while comes out and says,
Comes out of the grave.
he
And
comes
like,
out of the
"That's my
grave.
song."
Yeah, that was my song, and show people some kind of evidence that it was their music originally, and the Beatles copied it. Now that would be a big deal, by the way, because
Yeah.
the Beatles have been. I mean, they're old too, so.
Some of them. Yeah, no. I don't know.
But
I
that's
just think
my
it
point,
gets
is
into
that-
some ridiculousness. But then there are some moral.
Like, I don't know.
grounds to
So like
follow.
that's where I think it's interesting to me, is that, is it right for the songwriters to make money off of something that might not be entirely original?